everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's video we are discussing on IBM ReactJs interview question and answers. So all the question answers which we will be discussing in this video are completely based upon the real interview experience shared by the candidate. So let's start the video. First question which was asked in the interview was, what is hoisting in JavaScript? So let's see how you can answer this question. So hoisting is nothing but the declaration of your variables or the functions. They are moved to the top of their scope at the compile time. So, and one important thing which you should remember is only declarations are hoisted and not their initialization. So if you have variable, their declarations will be hoisted, not their initialization. So whatever value you are assigning, those things will not be hoisted, and your functions are also hoisted. So declaration of the variable or the function, they are moved to the top of their scope at compile time. That is called as the hoisting. Now let's see what are the different things in JavaScript that get hoisted. So first is var. So whenever you are trying to declare a variable, you make use of var or let or const. So var is present in JavaScript since beginning, whereas let and const, they were introduced in ES6 feature. So var, if you are making use of var keyword to declare your variable, so those variables, they are hoisted and they are initialized with the value undefined by default by JavaScript. Now coming to let and const, these are also the keyword useful for declaring your variables. So if you're making use of let and const, those variables are also hoisted, but they sit in temporal dead zone until their definition. So whenever you're trying to access such variable which are declared using let and const, then you get reference error like cannot access the variable before initialization. So you can say that let const, they are hoisted, but they are in temporal dead zone, so you get reference error. And then coming to your function declarations, they are also hoisted completely and they are callable before your definitions. But important catch here is only your regular functions are hoisted. Arrow functions, the arrow functions, how do you use to make your arrow function? You make use of let or const again, right? Arrow functions were again introduced in ES6. So if you have a arrow function, they are not hoisted. You get error for arrow functions also. Only your regular function declarations, they are hoisted completely. Now let's see the code example. See, here you have a variable which is declared with the keyword var. So if you're trying to access a variable before its declaration and initialization, so in first line you can see even before something called as a exists, you're trying to console it, right? A variable declaration is done in second line, but in first line you're trying to access it. So you get answer as undefined because JavaScript by default it will give the value undefined to any variable. Now coming to the second example, you can see there is another variable b which is declared and initialized with the keyword let. So if you're trying to access any variable before its declaration which is making use of let or const keyword, you get a reference error. Why? Because they are in temporal dead zone. You get reference error that cannot access this variable before initialization. Now coming to the regular function, you can see how do we make regular function. We make use of the function keyword and then function name, and then this is your function definition or function body. So if you're trying to access a function before their definition, then they are completely callable. There is no error, so it works as expected. So if you have function greet console.log and you call it before their declaration and definition, you get the proper answer as your logged value will be high. So this works properly. Okay, now this is about the first question. Now let's go to the second question. Second question which was asked in the interview was, what do you know about event loop? So let's see. We all know that JavaScript, it runs in a single thread. So JavaScript is a single threaded language. So how is event loop helpful here? Event loop, it coordinates the synchronous execution in the call stack and the asynchronous callbacks queued as microtask queue and the macrotask queue. And after the call stack empties, microtask run first and then we have the macrotask queue. After our macrotask queue gets executed and then repetition happens. So normally how event loop works is, see, we have something called as call stack here, and call stack, it works in the LIFO manner that whatever the synchronous code you have, so one by one all of these codes will be put into the call stack, and the code which was put into the call stack at last will be executed at first. Okay, so this is your synchronous code. Whereas coming to the asynchronous code, so for asynchronous code we have something called as queue section here, callback queues. So this is your call stack, and here you have callback queues. In callback queue we have two sections again. We have something called as microtask queue and we have macrotask queue. So this first one is your microtask queue. Okay, inside one. and then this is your macro task queue. In your micro task queue, you always have the callback functions of your promises, and coming to macro task queue, you have callback functions of your set timeout, set interval, or input output operations. So there is something called as event loop here. So what event loop does is it keeps on checking the call stack. If our call stack is empty, it doesn't have any synchronous code to be executed, then event loop will come and check in callback queue, is there anything present in callback queue, any asynchronous task which has to be executed. So it will first check micro task queue. So always micro task queue, they have higher priority, that is your promises, they have higher priority compared to set timeout and set interval, and set timeout, set interval are present in your macro task queue. So event loop which is present here, event loop is going to come and check in the callback queue that is there anything, any callback function to be executed. So if it sees that yes, there is a promise pending, or there is a set timeout, set interval callback function pending, so first it will check, okay, promise is having highest priority, it will take that promise callback function and put it in the call stack, and this is how execution happens of your asynchronous code. So again, event loop will go and check, is there any other pending promise? If there is any other pending promise, then set interval and set timeout, they'll have to wait until all the micro task functions are executed. So once micro task queue is empty, only after that event loop will check in the macro task queue, and after it checks the macro task queue, if there is any function, then it will take these functions too into the call stack, and this is how your asynchronous codes get executed. So this is about the event loop. You can explain this complete working to the interviewer that this is how it works, and event loop is the way how JavaScript is able to manage both synchronous and asynchronous tasks, because it is a single threaded language. Okay, and we have discussed that how asynchronous callbacks are there, they are present in callback queues, and then we have micro task where promises are present, and macro task queue where set timeout, set intervals, or your input output operations are present. And promises, they have higher priority, that is micro task queue callback functions, they have higher priority compared to the macro task queue. So your micro task queue, whatever is there, they will be having higher priority, and macro task queue, they have lower priority when compared to promises. And after the call stack is empty, then micro task queue runs first, and then macro task queue runs. So let's see the code example. We have console.log start, then we have set timeout, then we have promise, and then again we have console.log end. So you can see that these two lines which you see, they are asynchronous task, right? You might have read that set timeout, set interval, they are asynchronous, again promises, they are asynchronous task, whereas console.log which you see, these two lines, they are synchronous code. So as per whatever we have read, what happens, first synchronous tasks are executed. So what are the first things, one by one, what, how your lines will get executed? So first stop synchronous, first synchronous line of code will get executed. So your start will be printed at first, and then your asynchronous, it is put in callback queue, then again promise is again put in the callback queue. So promise goes in micro task queue, and set timeout goes in macro task queue, right? Then again you have a synchronous code, that is your second line of synchronous code, so end will get printed at second. Now coming to your set timeout promise, you can see that there is a catch here, that we have set timeout and the time given is 0, and set timeout is written in third line, whereas promise is written after set timeout, right? So what will get executed first? So normally we might think that yes, set timeout is written for first, so, and value also, the time also which we have given is 0 seconds, 0 milliseconds, so this will get executed first. But no, it is wrong. Your macro task queue, that is your set timeout, they have lower priority, we have discussed here, they have lower priority. Even if they are written above promise, they will get executed afterwards, because their priority is low when compared to promises. So promise, you can see it is written after set timeout, but since they are always managed by micro task queue which have higher priorities, so at third your micro task queue, that is this console, will get printed, and then at last your set timeout, that is macro task, will get printed. So this is how event loop works, and you can explain these things to your interviewer also, if in case they are asking you the working or give a code example. So you can give the code example of this, that is console.log will represent your synchronous tasks, and set timeout promise, they represent your asynchronous task, and in asynchronous task you have promises which have higher priority, and set timeout or set interval, they have lower priority. Now let's go to the third question. Third question was, what are promises in JavaScript? So promises, they are the JavaScript objects which represent the eventual completion of the task. So let's see what is written here. A promise, it represents a value that will be available in future. So there is a value that will be available in future, in near future it will get completed. It might fail or it might be successful, we don't know, but it will get completed. So that is what is written, that it represents a value that will be available in future. So it can be pending. First it will be in pending phase, and then it will eventually turn out to be fulfilled, or it will get rejected, but you will get some value. And how do we handle them? We make use of dot then, dot catch, and dot finally, or async await for cleaner async flows. So there are two ways of handling the promises, that is dot then, dot catch, and finally, and async await. So in dot then, once you have got value, successful value, your dot then works. If there is any error, that goes into dot catch, and finally runs either way, whether it is dot then or dot catch, finally is executed either way. Like anything happens, whether successful or rejection, finally will get executed. Whereas async await, they are useful for handling it in more cleaner flow, like it makes your code look like synchronous, so it is more clearer for the async flows. Now the example of how you can make the promise. So you have to make use of a new keyword, and then you write promise, that you are trying to initialize the promise, you're trying to like make a new promise. So you're declaring a new promise, and then there is argument. So arguments, there are two arguments which you can pass: resolve comma reject. So after this res, that is resolve, you can write rej, that is reject. So but that is optional, you can also do with one argument. Since it is just a small example, here I have made use of resolve, but yeah, two arguments also you can give. Now what I'm doing, after 500 millisecond, I am trying to resolve my promise, that after 500 millisecond I am going to get a successful answer, that is done. So that set timeout I've done, and whatever the answer will get, whatever is the data promise which you will be getting, that is stored in p. Now what you're doing, you're waiting that after some time you might get this answer, you might get the data, and then you are making use of dot then to handle it, that whenever I get data, I am going to do console dot log of whatever the data is. So you get whatever you have done, so whatever data you have given that. And in case there is some error, then you have to handle it in dot catch. And then finally also you can use if you want to do some kind of data cleaning or any other stuff. So this is one way of handling. And then second way of handling is by making use of async await, which we have written here. So we are calling a function f. What is f? F is a function which is a async function. So if you're making use of await, right, if you're making use of await, then it is compulsory for you to make your function async. So this is how we make use of async await. So what we are doing, we are awaiting for p. What is p? P is our promise, right? This is our promise object, JavaScript object. So we are waiting for p, and whenever we get the answer, whenever we get our proper answer, like whether it's done, it is fulfilled or rejected, any result, then we are making use of console.log. So we are logging our data of whatever data we will be getting eventually. So this is how you can make use of async await, or you can make use of dot then, dot catch, and dot finally. Fourth question which was asked was, what is the difference between spread and rest operator in JavaScript? So spread and rest operator in JavaScript, they were introduced in ES6 version of our JavaScript. So what is spread operator? Spread operator, it expands the iterable or the object. So iterable can be your array also. So it is helpful in expanding your iterable object into elements, that is individual element. If you have multiple elements in your iterable, that is array, then it is helpful in individually getting those values. So individually they will be converted into elements, so it is helpful for copying or merging. Coming to rest operator, it is the opposite of spread. So rest, it collects the function args. So you might be having in your functions, you might be passing multiple arguments, right? So rest, it collects the function args, individual function args, or the leftover properties into the array or object, that is your iterable. Okay, so it's written here, they share dot dot dot. So yeah, so the syntax for spread operator is three dots, and for the rest operator it is three dots, but they work in opposite roles. So spread is basically useful for expanding your array, whereas rest, it is useful for collecting the individual element or the left out properties into the iterable or the array. Now let's see the example. In example, you can see first example is for the array. So you have a array a, which is declared with the keyword const, and then you can see we have the values 1 comma 2, and then you have constant b, that is again a array, and you are making use of three dots, that is spread. you are trying to spread. So this array will get spread into individual values, that is a will become 1 comma 2. So you are individually expanding the array elements, iterable elements into the elements. So you get 1 comma 2, and then you have added one more. So you have 1 2 3. So this spread was helpful in copying the array. So you have copied a in b, and you have just added also, like you have added something extra. So copying or merging is the use of spread. Now coming to rest. So rest, you can see we have one function, and then this is the rest operated, three dots, and then you are accepting everything into the array, that is iterable nums, and then you are making use of nums dot reduce. So you're trying to add all of these things. Okay, so when do we use reduce? What is reduce? Reduce is an array function, right? If we are able to make use of reduce on nums, it means that nums is your array. So you here you can see you're calling sum, and then you have given 1 comma 2 comma 3, and when you call this function, then either you could have individually accepted it as a comma b comma c, right? And what if you are passing some 100 elements from your sum? So if you're passing some 100 elements from here, so how will you do? Again, you will have to like make use of a b c d 100 times, 100 variables, right? So that is going to be difficult. For that reason, we have something called as rest operator. So rest operator, it is accepting everything, like whatever number of your arguments are coming, it is accepting everything and putting it into a array or making it into a iterable. Yeah, this is about our rest operator. Now let's go to our fifth question. Fifth question is, what are different CSS layouts that you have used in your company? So here interviewer is asking about the CSS layout which a candidate is currently using in his or her company. So let's see what are different CSS layouts. So for this you can give answer that CSS layout, there are like multiple. So here we are discussing on the flexbox and grid. So flexbox, it is a one dimensional CSS layout, and it is good for alignment like either row wise or column wise. Whereas coming to grid, it is two dimensional CSS layout which is useful for the complex page layouts. And we have to make use of flex for the nav bars, whereas grid for the whole page or the dashboard layout. So let's see a code example. Now for flex, you have to write the class name, that is dot row or any class name, and then you have to write display as flex. This property you have to write, this CSS property is important, you have to give display flex. Then you have align items and justify content. So align items, this always works for the cross axis, whereas justify content, it always works for the main axis. Okay, and what are the different values which we can give in align item and justify content? So for justify content, we have different values like center, flex end, flex start, space around, space between, space evenly. And similarly with align items also, like we have center, flex start or flex end. So such things are there for line item and justify content. So if we are making use of the flex direction row, okay, normally by default your flex direction, that is you have to write completely, write like flex hyphen direction. By default it is row. Okay, by default it is row. So if you have flex direction by default it is row, then your main axis becomes your x axis, and your cross axis becomes your y axis. And then what if this is your flex direction is your row, then justify content will be applicable for the x axis, that is horizontally, and align items will be applicable vertically, that is on y axis. Whereas coming to flex direction column, if you write, then these things get reversed. If you write flex direction column, then your align item which is there, align item becomes this, and your justify content becomes this. Okay, so if you have flex direction as column, then your main axis will become your y axis, and your cross axis will become your x axis. So like let me write it clearly. If this is flex direction is column, then you will have your main axis as y axis. Okay, this y axis becomes your main axis. So my main axis is for justify content, and this becomes your cross. Whereas if your flex direction is row, then your horizontal is your main, that is x axis, and your y axis is your cross axis. So this is about the flex. Then we have grid. So grid, it is for this also we have to make use of grid property in display. And we have grid template column, 1 fr, 2 fr is for fractions, and then this is gap, that is the different, like the gap between the two columns or the rows. So this one fr and two fr grid template column. This defines the two columns in the grid, so there will be two columns. Okay, this is what it means, since we are making use of two values here, right? Here one fr two fr, so there will be two. In case you have one fr one fr one fr one fr four times, then there will be four columns. Here we have two, so this defines for the two columns in the grid. And fr, this means fraction unit. So when fr to fr, it means that the first column which you have, it takes the one fraction of your available width, whereas the second column, it takes the two fractions of your available width. So second column, whichever is there, it is going to be twice as wide as the first one. So for example, if your screen is having 900 pixels, okay, this is your entire width, 900 pixels. So first column, it will have 300 pixels width, and your second column, it will have 600 pixels. This is how the columns will be spread in your entire screen, because we have only two columns. So two columns will be made. First will be given 300 out of 900, and second one will be given 600 out of 900. So this is how your grid layout works. Now let's go to the sixth question. How do you develop the responsive design? So before discussing on how do we develop, what is responsive design? So responsive web design is all about creating the websites that work well on any device, whether it is a phone or it is a tablet or it is computer. So your website should work well on any device. And responsive web design, it is designing your websites that contain flexible layouts that can scale itself according to the screen size of the width it is being viewed on. So whatever your website is there, it should have such layouts that it is going to scale itself according to the screen size. So if your screen size is smaller, then your nav bar might be in vertical, but if it is a desktop, then you can show your nav bar horizontally, right? So this is how you make your websites responsive. So they should scale themselves according to the screen changes, whatever is happening and where this website is being viewed. So that is called as responsive design. So for responsive design, you can make use of media queries. Also you can make use of the fluid units. And we can design it by making use of fluid unit like percentage, rem, VW, that is like view width, that is viewport width. So these are the relative units which we can make use of to achieve the responsive designs. And for mobile first approaches, we can make use of mobile first approaches. So few of the libraries like Bootstrap and Tailwind CSS, they offer mobile first approach, so mobile first breakpoints. And we can make use of the media queries to adapt layouts for different screens. So this is how we make use of media query. We have to write at media, and then we write min width. So what is min width? So if this is your screen, larger screen, then min width means that at least this much width should be there. So below this width, your CSS wouldn't work. So if you want to make your CSS work for the some smaller width screen, then you have to give your max width as 768. So whatever code you would have written, CSS property, that will be applicable for at least max width till this. Okay, so max width till 768. And this CSS which you see min width, so all this CSS will be applicable 768 plus 768 and plus. So this is what min width means. So min width is like at least this much should be there for your screen to start with. This is the minimum width, and then whatever, how much ever it can increase up to. Now let's see the seventh question. Seventh question is, what are SASS or SCSS preprocessors? So SASS, it is a preprocessor that lets you write the CSS with more power and flexibility. So they add some power and flexibilities like variables, nesting, mixins, and functions, making our large style sheets maintainable. For example, we can make use of variables for color, then we can make use of mixins for reusable pattern. And example which you can see here is, I have one variable called as primary and I have given this color. Now if in case I don't have this variable and I have 50 classes where I have to make use of this primary color only, because since it is a primary color, maybe I want it in my header also, I want it in my buttons also, or I want it in my border. So multiple places I would be using this primary color. If I don't have variable, everywhere I have to go and type this hash 0d6 efd, and there are chances I might miss also, there might be some kind of mistake. So for that reason, if we make use of SAS or SCSS that are preprocessors, we can make use of the variables. and then this variable I can use it anywhere, and it avoids the issues like some mistakes which we are doing while writing our code or remembering it, or someone else is using some, instead of 6 they are making use of 7. So such issues can be avoided by making use of variable. And also here you can see that this properties, this syntax is little different. If you had to make use of hover for the button, then you would have written separate block, right? Here you can see in the same block completely you have covered that for button what and all properties are there, background should be this, and on hover we should have this. So there are multiple features given to us in SASS that are like nesting, and then there are mixins and functions and variables. So there are multiple features given to us if we make use of preprocessors like SAS or SCSS. Now let's go to the eighth question, where you are asked to remove the duplicates from an array. So you will be given an array and then you have to remove the duplicate. So your answer should be like 1, and then it should have 2, then 3, and 4, 5. So this is what your output should look like. Now there are multiple ways of how you can solve these questions. Here I have discussed on the two. So first is by making use of reduce, and second is by making use of set. So set is the easier one, but I don't think this will be accepted in your interview, since this is the easiest approach and this doesn't involve any logic building. So this is one approach, but yeah, you should also know one of the way of how you can solve this question by making a logic. So first we will discuss the easiest one. You have a array here, that is AR, and it is having duplicates value of 2 and 4. Now if you want to bring only the unique values, then you can make use of set. So set is going to give you the unique values, it will remove all the duplicate values. So you are making use of dot dot dot, dot, that is spread operator. So you're spreading everything into a new array, you are collecting everything into a new array, and then you have made use of new set array. So you are passing all the array values and into the set, and set is going to give you the unique value. So unique values, once you have got, you are storing it in the unique array and you are logging that value. So this is how you get the unique values. You remove the duplicate. So this is the easiest one, but not sure if this will be accepted by your interviewer because there is no logic building here. Now coming to the first approach, that is we are making use of dot reduce, that is the array method. So you are looping over the every element of the array, that is ARR, and this ACC is basically the accumulator, that is your final value. And what is accumulator initialized with, it is having empty array, because that is what you have to give in answer, that is array. Then this is item. Item is going to get the values individually one by one, like 1, then next time it will be 2, then next time it will be again 2, 3, 4, 4, 5. So individually you'll be getting all the values in item. And now what you're doing, you have ACC, so you're checking that, see, this is how it works. So first we have one array, okay, initialized, we have initialized our array with our empty values. Now you're coming, does your array include this item, is one present? If it is, it is not present, right? Do we have one here? No, it is not present. So not of ACC dot includes of item becomes true. So one is not present in our array, then you push one. Okay, now coming to 2, then again, do you have it in your array? No, it is not there, then you push 2. Now again you come with 2, that is this one, this comes in your item. Then you'll check, is 2 not present in this array? 2 is obviously present, right? This becomes false, then you don't push it. This becomes, if the if block is false, you don't work, you don't execute this code. Then 2 is not pushed, then 3 comes, is 3 present? No, then you push it. Is 4 present? No, you push it. Is 4 again present? This 4, is 4 again present in this array? Yes, it is present. So not of true becomes false, so you don't push it. Then you don't have anything. Now again 5 comes, and then you return this, like you have pushed. So 1 2 3 4 5 is your answer. You are returning your ACC. What is ACC? This is this array, right? We initialize this. So you're returning your ACC, that is your answer array, and then you're just logging it and you get answer as 1 2 3 4 5. So these are the two ways of how you can remove the duplicates from the array. Now let's go to the ninth question. What are different data types in TypeScript? So let's see what are different data types. So TypeScript provides the static types, like we have string, we have number, boolean, any, and unknown, void, never. So these are the data types present in the TypeScript, and it improves the IDE support, and it is also helpful for the compile time safety. So how do we make use of data types in TypeScript? So how do we manage the type safety, so we have to normally write how we declare our variable. So let name, and then you also give the value like whatever you want to, but before that you have to make use of this symbol and you will write your data type. So data type can be anything: string, number, boolean, any, unknown, void, never. And accordingly value should also be there. So if you're writing number here, number, then you should give number here. If you're writing string, then your value should be string. If it's boolean, then it should be true or false. So accordingly you have to write your code. So you have to make use of the colons, and then you have to write your data type after your variable name. Our 10th question, which was asked in the interview, was what are generics in the TypeScript? So what are generics? Generics in TypeScript, they allow developers to create reusable components that can work with multiple data types. So previously you saw that we explicitly mentioned that name will only have string, but what if we want to make it reusable? Like afterwards maybe I want to make use of numbers, so for that we can make use of generics. And it is helpful for creating reusable component that can work with the multiple data types while maintaining the type safety. Of course type safety will be there. And generics, they are widely used in the functions, they are used in the classes or the interfaces for building reusable and adaptable code. So here we have written reusable type safety that preserves the type, and here see we are using the generics in function. So what is generic here? Like this t whatever you see, right, type, this is a generic type. Here we are not mentioning, see here again this is a variable argument, and here you are not specifying string or number or what it is. So you are giving a generic value, and this value can be anything afterwards. So this is your identity, this is your function, and then you have a variable you are expecting, and that is what you will be returning also, like that is what you're returning here, right? So the returned value will also have the same data type. Now here you are calling that function identity and you are passing generic data type as string. So for this s, your data type has become string and you're passing hello and you will get hello back. So you're returning x, so you'll get string only, you'll get string back. Whereas coming to number, in case you have something like n, you can make use of same thing, identity you can call same thing, and then here you can give number, here you can write number. Now your data type becomes number. So this is how generics works. So you're making your function reusable, right? So this is called as your generics. Now your 12th question which was asked was what is difference between interface versus type? So interface, there is a slight difference between interface and type. So interface, they are extendable, that is they are helpful for like class oriented, object oriented programming. So if you want some kind of parent child relationship, so inheritance wise interfaces, they are useful, they are extendable and best for the object shapes, and they support declaration merging. Whereas coming to type, they are more flexible with unions, with primitives or the mapped types, and we have to make use of interface for the public APIs and type for the unions or the aliases. And code example, you can see this is how we declare the interface. So we have to write keyword interface, then the interface name, that is user, and then these are the properties. Whereas coming to type, you have id and you have declared it as type, and then it can have either number or the string. So this is the difference between interface and type. So syntax, of course you can say, and interface, they are extendable, they are good for extendability, whereas type, they are more flexible. So you can have the aliases or unions or primitives, so they are useful that way. Now our 13th question was what is difference between undefined and null? Undefined and null. So undefined, so for the undefined, values are automatically assigned when a variable is declared but not initialized, or when the properties doesn't exist. So if you're declaring your variable and you have not given it any value, then JavaScript is automatically going to give it undefined as its value. Whereas coming to null, it is the intentional or the explicit assignment, meaning no value used by the developer to signal empty. So null is the value which developers would be assigning intentionally or explicitly, that there is no value. Whereas undefined, it means that still we don't know what the value is. So JavaScript is automatically by default giving the value undefined. So example, you can see we have just declared a variable a with the keyword let. Then if you try to log it, you get undefined because JavaScript is assigning the value undefined to this variable by default. Whereas coming to the second variable, that is let b is equal to null, here developer is intentionally assigning null value to the b, meaning that there is no value for this variable, there is no value stored, so explicitly empty. So if you console this, you get null, whereas if you console a, you get undefined as the output. Now the 14th question, what is event delegation in JavaScript? So event delegation, let's see what is written. So attach a single event listener on the parent and use the event.target to handle the events on the multiple child elements, and this saves the memory and handles the dynamic children reliably. So I'll give you an example of what event delegation means. So suppose you have multiple, some 50 list of data, okay, some 50 list elements you have, and then you have to write the on click on this every element. You have to write on click. If you have clicked on the first, then you have to somewhere store that, okay, first is clicked or fifth is clicked or something like that. So how many times will you write on click on every element? You will have to go and write the on click, right? Now it is 50. What if it is 1000? Then 1000 times you will have to write on click. That is a difficult task to achieve. So instead of that, what we do is we will be searching for a parent of this element. So we will be having a parent of this entire list. So what we will do, we will attach the event handler to the parent. So we will be writing on click only once on the parent, and then we will be handling the events of multiple child by making use of event. So if you're clicking here, you will have anyway have the event, right? You will have the event object, and that event you will be passing in the on click of the parent, and from there you can do whatever you want, like event.target.value or event.target will have the details of where you have clicked, what element you have clicked. So from there you can handle your logic that what you want to do. So this is called as event delegation. So instead of assigning the event for 1000, or what if it is like dynamic? So now I'm saying 1000. If it is dynamic, it is coming from backend, it might have lakhs of data also, right? So how many times will you go and write? Every time you'll have to search, okay, this time 1000 is coming, next time 10,000 is coming. So if it is dynamic, how many times will you write the on click? It is difficult for front end developer to achieve it. So for that reason, we make use of event delegation. Now we are delegating, we are not doing our task on our elements, individual element. We are delegating our task to the parent, that okay, I am not writing any on click here, parent has to handle it. But yes, I will give my event object, I will give whatever is clicked, which element is clicked, if this is clicked or some 1000 element is clicked or whatever it is, I will give you my event object, but parent has to handle it. So we are delegating our task. That is called as event delegation in JavaScript. We are delegating our event. So this is what is written. We attach a single event listener on the parent, and we make use of event.target to handle the events on many child elements, and this is helpful in saving the memory and handles the dynamic children reliably. Here you have example. So you are writing your event handler on document. So document is your parent here now. So document dot get element by list, so you will get the list. Now in the entire document you will get the list. So this is your parent, like the document is the whole bigger parent, and then you are getting the actual parent of our elements of our list. So you are getting this one. So here get element by list, so this one you will get here, okay, this one you have got the parent element. Then you are attaching the event listener on this. So event listener, you are attaching that whenever there is any click inside this parent, inside this entire container, if there is any click, you will get that event, and then event dot target dot matches button dot delete, whether it is delete, add, or anything, whatever it is. So you're checking based upon the event dot target which you have got, and then you will write your logic here, handle event, handle delete, or anything. So this is how you are delegating your job to the parent. So document.getElement by id list will give you the parent container, then you will have the individual elements inside it. So you are attaching the event listener, that is click event listener, to the parent, and you're making use of event object, that is event.target, to match any data and handle the events for multiple child element. Now let's see the 15th question, how React reconciliation works. So React keeps a virtual DOM representation, and when state changes, it diffs, that is difference, with the new virtual DOM against the previous one. It computes the minimal changes and updates the real DOM. Keys are crucial for the stable identity in the list. So React can match the items across renders and avoid remounting. So in React, we have real DOM, right? But we also have virtual DOM. So virtual DOM is a lightweight copy of our real DOM. It is in memory representation of our real DOM. So if any changes are happening in our web application or in our component, so what React does, it is going to do those changes first in the virtual DOM. Okay, it will not do entirely all the changes in real DOM, because that is expensive. It requires more computation and it is very expensive, and it might lead to the latency in our application, and it makes our application inefficient. So React will do all the changes in lightweight copy, that is in virtual DOM. Then React is going to compare between the two virtual DOMs. So previously we had one old virtual DOM, right? We had one old virtual DOM, and then there is a new virtual DOM which is having some extra changes. So it is going to do the comparison. So there is a diffing algorithm here. So once it gets to know that okay, there is some change in our virtual DOMs, then React is going to put this specific change in our real DOM. So in real DOM only some specific parts are changed, not our whole real DOM is reconstructed. So only some specific parts are changed in our real DOM. So this is how reconciliation works. So this process of changing the real DOM based upon the virtual DOM, whatever are the real changes, this is called as reconciliation. So let's read the definition again. So React keeps the virtual DOM representation, and when the state changes, it diffs the new virtual DOM against the previous one. This is what we have discussed. So React keeps the virtual DOM representation, and whenever there is some change, it is going to do the diffing algorithm. It is going to do difference between the virtual DOM new, this is our new virtual DOM, with the previous virtual DOM, and it computes the minimal changes and updates the real DOM. So it is going to compute the minimal changes, that okay, this is the only change in our previous and the new, and then it is going to update the real DOM. So this is about our reconciliation. Now the next point is keys. They are very crucial for the stable identity in the list. So Reacts can match item across the renders and avoid remounting. So whenever we are making use of the map method on our array, then we have to make sure that we are always giving the key, else we will get the warning. But why is this key useful? So key is useful to know that which element has got deleted, has got updated, or something new got added. So for that we should make use of key. So this is how these are very crucial for the stable identity in the list, so that React can know that what is getting changed here, and that is how React will do the minimal changes in our virtual DOM. So if something got deleted, so it need not delete or need not recalculate everything. So it is just going to see that what is the key, what is the ID, and it will delete that node from our virtual DOM. Now something is added, it is just going to add something new, it need not recalculate everything. So that is why keys are important, to have the stable identity, so that the rendering part whichever is done, that is efficient in our real DOM, and it avoids the remounting. So this is about the React's reconciliation process. Now the 16th question is, what is the difference between functional and the class component? So let's see. Functional component are the preferred ones nowadays. So they are the modern way of writing the React code, and they have the hooks for the state and the side effects, whereas class components, they were previously used in the React, and nowadays most of the companies, they are changing their class components into functional components. And in class components, they have the lifecycle methods, they don't have hooks or the side effects, for the side effects, for state handling and the side effects. So in class component, everything is handled by the lifecycle methods. Also class components, they are difficult to understand, difficult to read, and also they take more line of code to achieve something which we can do in functional component by writing some small code snippet. Okay, now lifecycle methods can be different lifecycle methods. So we have component did mount, component did update, then component will unmount. So multiple lifecycle methods are there. Now coming to use effect, that is functional component. There are multiple hooks also, for state also it's there, for side effects also it's there. So here we are discussing on the side effects one, that is use effect. So for that we have use effect hook, we have to write use effect, then first parameter will be your callback function, and then the next is like optional, so you can give the array. Now if you're not giving any second parameter, that is your array dependency array, that when you have to rerun this side effect block, then this is going to run on every render. So if you have not given on every render of your component, this is going to work. Now if you have given empty dependency array, this will run only once whenever your component is mounting. And if you write the dependency that okay, if the count is changing, anything in the count variable changes, then only you have to redo this block of code, then this will run on the dependency changes. And then you can write the cleanup functions to run before the unmount or before the next use effect. So this is our use effect, normally how we write. This is our first callback function, and then below you can see there is a dependency array, so it will run only once. Then you have your code logic, and this is your return function, return block. Okay, now if you are making use of this just a empty array, then this is equivalent to your component did mount lifecycle. So it is component did mount, equivalent to component did mount in the class based component. And if you have the dependency, then it is for component did update. So if anything is updating, then you will be rerunning your use effect block. And then if it is cleanup function, so this return which you see, right, that is cleanup function. So this is equivalent to component will unmount. So this is how use effects are synchronous with the lifecycle method. So in functional component, we don't have lifecycle method. Instead of them, we have the equivalent way of how we can make use of lifecycle methods in our functional component. Now let's go to the 17th question. 17th question is, what is context API? So normally the data in React, it flows from top to down direction using the props. We all know that React, it is unidirectional. It supports the unidirectional flow of the data. So all the data is flowing from top to down using the props, that is from parent to child component. But if the same data, for example, data can be like theme, whether dark or light, or the user settings, or the authentication data, is needed by the many nested component. If multiple component, we have to know that what is the mode, what is the theme of the application which user wants. Then what do? We pass the props through every layer, and this becomes messy. So if this is your parent component and this is where you are having a state called theme, now in multiple component, okay, this is my child, then again maybe there is one more child, and then there is fourth child of this. Okay, so if I want to know the theme here, because my component CSS is dependent upon the theme of what user wants, then I'll have to pass the props to first level, second level, and third level. Now this can continue to multiple level, okay, some 5 6 7. So this makes our code messy. So context API in React is a built-in feature in the React that allows you to share the data across the component tree without having to pass the props manually at the every level. So instead of passing the props manually at the every level, we can make use of context API. See, if we are making use of normal props, then this component maybe it did not need the theme, and then this component also did not need the theme. It is my third grandchild who needed the theme, but still these two components need to have the props, and this is making our code messy, right? So instead of making use of prop drilling, so this is called as prop drilling. Okay, so instead of prop drilling, we can make use of the context API, which will be helpful for us passing the data without manually prop drilling the props to every level. So here it's written, we can make use of the context API if we want the data to be globally present and lower frequency of updates like theme and authentication. If there is any data which is having lower frequency of update, then only we have to make use of context API, not for everything. You cannot make use of context API for everything like state changes, form data, because those things keep changing, right? But theme is something specific. Either you have light mode or the dark mode or the authentication or the auth code. So such things, there should be low frequency of the update, but yes, it can update, but low frequency wise. And avoid updating the context value frequently. This causes the re-render. Of course, if you're changing anything in the context API, this is going to cause the re-render. Now there are three steps of how we make context API, how context API works. So first is, you have to create the context using the react dot create context. So first you have to create the context. So if you are making use of theme, so for that theme data, then you have to first create the context for that. Then you have to wrap your app. So you have your app component, right, the main component where your entire application is there. So before this app component, then there will be closing also of this. So you have to wrap your app with this context which you have created. So somewhere here, okay, you have to wrap it with the provider. So whatever provider you will be having, you have to wrap it, which passes down the value. So in this wrapper only, you will be giving the value also. Like you can give the value just for reading purpose, or also you can give the updating function like state set state. So someone can set it also from this component. If I want to set my theme, then that is also possible, depends upon your application what you want to give. Then in any component, like any component, they can consume the value in any component, making use of the use context hook. So there is a hook which we have to make use of to use the context data. So that is use context. So these are the three steps of how context API works. Now let's go to the 18th question, that is, what are the different ways to improve the app performance? Now there are multiple ways of how we can improve the app performance. I have listed few here. If you have some extra point, you can add those things in your interview. So first thing is, we can make use of code splitting and the lazy loading routes and the component. So we have to make use of react.lazy or the dynamic import. So whenever the component is needed, only then we will be making use of react.lazy, and only then components will be fetched for us. Those will be rendered for us. So this is how the react.lazy we have the code snippet. So we are importing dot heavy. Obviously this is one of the component which we would have normally imported, but now we are importing only in case we want it. Okay, so react dot lazy, we have to write, and then there will be a callback function, and then inside that we have to import, and then we have to make use of suspense. So in case this component did not load fast, is not available, then we can show a loader that okay, something is loading, and then we can make use of this component, that is heavy component, and then we can close the suspense. So this is the first point. Second is we can memoize the pure functions. We have to make use of react.memo. So we have to memoize the pure function. So there will be a shallow comparison in our component whenever there is any re-rendering happening, whether re-render is required or not. We can make use of the hooks like use callback and use memo. So use memo is helpful for memoizing the value of the heavy computation function, and use callback is helpful for memoizing the function itself. And the third point is we can avoid the unnecessary renders. We have to lift up these states. So if there is some state which is being used by multiple components, then we can lift it up, we can give it to the parent, so that there is not multiple renders happening in the component. Also we have to optimize the images and responsive sizes and the webp, and we have to compress our assets and enable the http caching. So caching and compression and optimizing the images, these are few of the way of how we can optimize our app. And then we can make use of the virtualization for the large list. So if you have large list, if you have some table or the list, then you can make use of virtualization, that is, or the react window, so that only some part of the list is visible to the user, and if they want something extra, then only the extra rows of the table or the extra lists are fetched. So we need not fetch lakhs of data together. So how much will be visible for our user in one screen, that much only we will be showing. So that is virtualization. And we can make use of server side rendering or the static generation for the first paint improvement. So in static server side rendering or the static generation, so all of the data html page is already rendered in the server, and that is given to our browser, and then browser can make use of that html rendered element to show in the browser or at the client side, so that the first paint improvement is good and user is uh, able to see the website at least, and he is not logging out of your application seeing just a loader. So these are few of the ways of how you can improve the app performance. Now 19th question is how will you approach to a debugging production issue. So if you have a production issue, then how will you be fixing it? What will be your approach to debugging? So first is triage. So you can have a triage call with the team, with the production team or the client, and gather the user report timestamp and the repro steps. So replication steps, reproduction steps, and all you can gather in the triage call. And then after that you have to collect the data. So you have to check the console, if there is any log you have to check the logs, and then error tracking, sanitary metrics, cpu memory, network traces, apis, course error, or whatever that is, you have to collect the data. Then you have to reproduce in the staging or create a minimal reproduction. So you have to reproduce the bug, at least try reproducing it in your staging or in your local. Then isolate the root cause using the bisecting, revert the commits, breakpoint, or the feature flag. So you have to isolate the root cause, that before what commit this bug was not there, and after what commit this bug has come. So you can try reverting few of the commits, or you can bisect or add some breakpoints, that before what date this error did not come or this bug did not come, and after what commits or after what date, after what feature this is coming. Then you can give the hotfix or rollback if critical. So you can give the hotfix, or you can roll back few of the commits if it is very critical. Otherwise you can create a patch and test. So you can fix it, create patch and test, then postmortem, that is document cause. So once you have fixed everything, you have to document the cause, that why did this happen, then fix what you have given, then what are the test cases, unit test cases, and functional test cases you have done, and monitoring to prevent the reoccurrences, so that it doesn't occur again and again. What are the monitorings you have done? So these are the few approaches of how you can debug a production issue. Yeah, now we have covered all the important questions which were asked in the IBM interview questions. So if you found this video to be helpful, then do give a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you have any suggestion or feedback, or you want me to make video on any other topic, you can let me know in the comment section. And thanks for watching everyone.